All right, so under the law, sexual harassment is actually two different things. It's quid pro quo, which is more of the obvious side of sexual harassment. So if you're in the workplace and somebody says, have sex with me and I'll give you a promotion. I mean, that's pretty much how it works. You would think that we would have eradicated that by 2018, but I found out that we are far from doing that. The second way that the law distinguishes sexual harassment is that it is a hostile work environment. And that's where it can become a little bit more subjective, because what I might find offensive, somebody else may not find offensive. For example, if somebody's watching porn on their computer at work, some people may not think that's a big deal if they sit next to this person and have to hear it and watch it. Other people might. So this is where the gray area can become more complicated. I think it's actually one of the things that leads to the promulgation of the myths surrounding this issue, is because there is kind of this gray area with sexual harassment. And I think it becomes more difficult to define, not only for the person experiencing it, but the person doing it. So this is the area that I think we really need to do the most work in.
There are legal definitions of sexual harassment, but for a faith community, a way to think about sexual harassment is any behavior or language that devalues another person based on their gender. The person who gets to decide if the behavior or language devalues is the person who's the recipient of that behavior or language. And it's important to keep in mind that there's usually a power imbalance when this is going on. It's rarely just about sex. It's usually about power. Historically, in our country, there's been much more hostile environment, just that permeated sexual undertones, than situations where there's been quid pro quo, somebody wanting to get something for a sexual favor for something. So sexual harassment can be a whole continuum. It can be inappropriate jokes, comments, and I'll give you some examples in church settings in a moment, all the way up to what I would consider predatory behavior. And we have seen some examples of predatory behavior of late in the public sphere. And it doesn't really matter for conversations within a faith community if you call it sexual harassment, exploitation, or abuse. It has to do with somebody using power and sex or gender over somebody else. Things I have seen in churches, sexual harassment I have seen, are very capable female rectors being told by an elder in the church, "You look so cute up there on the altar." Or having, at the end of a vestry meeting, having usually an older male come up to the female rector, put his arm around her and say, "Now, honey, you're really not very attractive when you get so angry." Other situations, leaning close into a female rector and telling her, "You smell great. Is that your shampoo or perfume?" It's a real turn on. Those are all comments with very few physical contact pieces, not very little touch, but comments that devalue the ability of that person who's receiving those comments to be a fully responsible leader. The person is not being recognized as a whole and is being degraded. Another example of sexual harassment in a church setting is coffee hour. This doesn't involve the ordained leader. It involves a member of the parish constantly following and seeking another member for a sexualized romantic relationship. The person being sought after repeatedly says, "No, I am not interested." Goes on week after week. The person seeking the relationship now has the person's home phone number from the parish directory, calls the person at home, texts repeatedly. Unwanted sexual advances. That's sexual harassment as well, and that is not okay in a work setting or particularly in a community of faith. Communities of faith, as you know, is where we're all to be treated as children of God, all valued by God. We promise in our baptismal covenants to respect the dignity of every human being. These behaviors do not do that.